Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
All these busy people worried something's wrong.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not buying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bad as you. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. For you. I'm looking for you. All these busy people. All these busy people. All these busy people.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
And sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
All these busy people. All these busy people. All these busy people. All these busy people.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
And sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. 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 Just as bad as you.
And sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. 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 Just as bad as you.
All these busy people worried something's wrong.
Just as bad as you. 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 Just as bad as you.
All these busy people worried something's wrong.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not buying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bad as you. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. For you. I'm looking for you. All these busy people, all these busy people, all these busy people.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
And sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
All these busy people, all these busy people, all these busy people, all these busy
Just as bad as you. Just as bad as you.
and sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. 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 Just as bad as you.
And sometimes crazy rain.
Just as bad as you. 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 Check the mic. No, it's all went silly. Well, I can help as well. Yeah, my mic's working fine. Yours is not working.
Okay, yeah, no, there I am. Let's go. Let's see. This should be good. No.
There's a delay in the
This
feed,
should
so I have to
be
wait for you to
good.
speak.
No.
There's a delay in the feed, so I have to wait for.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Give me a little something on your end again.
Talking a lot of stuff for Bo Ransdell, making some noise.
All right.
Noise.
All right. I think we're good.
I will
Okay.
trust you. You have a trustworthy face, Bo Ransdell.
Well, we both know that's not true. All right. We are going to fade out, and when we fade back in, it'll be showtime. So we'll be right back, everybody.
All these busy people worried something's wrong.
Just as bad as you, just as bad as
Don't get me wrong, I'm not buying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bad as you. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. For you. I'm looking for you. All these busy people. All these busy people.
One's bad. Rotten to the fucking core.
I think what's amazing about this is I think the show is actually subverting some of my expectations.
Oh, yeah, like, what I loved of it is, like, at the end of the last episode we recorded, we had to predict what we thought was going to happen, and I was like, I was right this time, but I was like, I imagine they'll just get rid of June really quickly, and you're like, I think June's going to survive. I think she will be fine, and then, I switched that episode on, I was like, oh no. I was right and Bo was wrong. And Bo was wrong, but the concept of time, we'll get into it. But once again, less than 24 hours missing. Did you see the state of that body?
Dude, there is a point. We'll get to it in a moment. By the way, welcome to Duncan and Bo Come Correct this
Oh,
season.
shit.
Duncan and Bo / fiction. Starting right off the bat talking about the show Slasher. That's unusual for us.
Hot footing it right in
But
there.
we'll get to the meat of this here in a minute. But the thing that really surprised me about this, and to your point about the time jumps in the show Slasher, there was a point where after she dies, they cut to Cam, and I was like, "Oh, is this her funeral already?"
I thought it was a week.
Yeah,
I genuinely thought it was a week. And it had been less than 24 hours from the, you've brought nothing but murder to this town conversation. I was like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Oh,
we'll
time
get
is
to
a
all
flat
that.
circle, Boran, still. It's a flat circle.
Um,
Flat circle of nonsense and inconsistency.
I, as my co-host mentioned, and Bo Ransdell with me as ever, the plucky Duncan McLeish.
Hi.
We are. Look, here's what we didn't always talk about bad stuff. Not on this show. Sometimes we talk about really good stuff. We talked about the 3rd season of Twin Peaks.
Yes.
Which is perhaps one of the greatest things that has ever been put to film.
Yeah, we've talked in the past, we talked about like the first 2 seasons of Westworld, which even at their weaker moments were still infinitely interesting conversations. Bo Ransdell, we talked about not only season 2, but season 3 of True Detective, and 1 or 2 really good episodes of the X-Files.
Yeah, a couple of them. And yeah, so it doing Slasher is a bit of a goof, admittedly. But
We knew what we're getting. Listen, we said up front, we both watched that first episode and we were like, this is prime for ridicule. I just didn't realize they were building a whole season around that. I thought at some point it would actually start to, I don't know, kind of change tone, change tact. And no, what I love about it is they are doubling down hard. Well, now you thought this was dumb. Well, wait till you see this. Hold my beer.
yeah, it's one of those things, like, how sometimes you hear somebody say something and it sticks in your craw, but you don't realize how true it is until a little bit later.
Yes.
And it was a comment on one of these here very shows, Duncan, where someone said, "Oh, Duncan still thinks this is a real show."
Yes.
And at the time I thought, "Oh, that's quite droll. How very funny." And now here we are on episode 5, and I'm like, "Oh no, that's right. This just isn't like this kind of looks like a real show if you squint at it." But then at a certain point you realize, like, oh no.
Well, it's a soap opera, is what I've realized. It's a soap opera. Like every episode finishes with a character kind of, mischievously smiling to the side or someone getting knocked off camera. So it's basically it is a condensed soap opera into 8 episodes, kind of ticking the boxes of things that have happened in much better slasher movies.
Yeah.
So
Well, we'll get to all that in a minute. But
yeah, we're gonna get to it.
before we get into episode 5 of Slasher, first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hey in the chat and all. So before we get started, what we like to do around here is we like to talk about a movie, good and bad, that we've seen over the course of the past couple of weeks. And I guess I don't know if in fact I know I didn't say this in the upfront. I might as well say it right now. Speaking of the last couple of weeks, we've kind of more stumbled into than meant to fall into sort of a bi-weekly schedule here of late with the video stuff. And so Duncan and I were talking about it, and so I think just moving forward, that's kind of our plan, barring anything unforeseen. And the way we're going to do it is you're going to see the live episodes every other week. And then a week after the live episode, you're going to get the audio version. So if you don't watch the live thing, you're still going to get the show and all that, of course. But if you want to join us live and chit-chat and whatnot, that's always a blast too. So
it's a great way to kick off your weekend because it's early America time and it's boozing time UK time.
Yeah.
So
take a drink. let the folks know. I don't know that we can do that on YouTube, but try. Can you drink? I'm sure you can.
I'm sure we'll find out in a second. Does that been blurred out?
No, I don't. What technology do you think we're working with here?
I have no idea. Up until like a couple of months ago, this was purely audio based, and they couldn't see our faces.
Right, we didn't have the American and Scottish flag backgrounds waving behind us majestically.
Yeah, but also, like I'm just like convinced at this stage that you found like a crashed UFO, like Roswell style, and that can only explain the vast increase in technology used to produce and put out this show in the last like 2 months.
I've yes, there's a lot of dark magic at work. And speaking of dark magic, Duncan,
yes,
let's talk about our good and bad, and I kind of want to start if I could.
Oh, please do.
With my bad.
Yep. Give me it.
And it's not terrible. But I saw that movie Shook that premiered.
Yeah,
on
I've seen it as well. Yeah,
and I know you did, and I didn't listen to your review, kind of purposefully, because I wanted to have this conversation with you. And so here's my total take on it, because I almost did a review myself, and I was like, you know what? I don't know that I feel strongly enough about this movie, one way or the other, that I feel like I could give an impassioned review. Where I came down on it, I think it is well directed. I think it has some very cool representations of how do you present social media in a cinematic way. That's kind of interesting. And then I think everything else about it kind of sucks.
Did you feel that maybe at some point the script was handed off to the guy that wrote season 1 of Slasher?
It starts to twist, and you're like, okay, I guess I see where this is going, but I don't know where this lands us thematically,
Yeah.
And then it twists further, and that's the point where it's like you can hear the tibia snap, where you're like, oh no, you broke the movie.
Yeah, I'm actually, my review, weirdly enough, when you do listen to it, is on point pretty much with everything you said, even down to the point where I purposely mentioned that one of the standout things to me was its visual representation of technology. The fact that it's, it goes from like text chat in the background, actually can display in the background, to when she's reading text messages, actually having the person whisper in her ear. I loved all that stuff, but the movie really loses itself about halfway through, and then it tries to stumble back any sense of credibility in the last 25 minutes, and it just fumbles, like really, really, really badly fumbles. And it can't pick itself up after that. And then that last shot, fuck this movie. You know what I mean? Do you want a sequel? No. No, I really don't. And also, I don't think that's possible. And two, it's a predictable ending. And yeah, the laundry list of things just kind of, and it kind of upset me a little bit because I like the idea in principle of, and we've seen it done before in social media horror, and internet horror. We've seen it done before, but I like the idea in principle of what would happen if an influencer, someone who is basically created this fake persona of her lifestyle, is actually confronted to face the things that she's neglected in order to portray that false sense of self. This idea that her mother's dying and her mum was dying, and she was too busy, getting YouTube likes or Instagram tags than to spend the kind of final, because those are things that don't get you Instagram followers. I loved that aspect. I thought that was really, really cool, and I wanted them to really dig into that. And no, because very much like the superficiality of the person that you are supposed to at first dislike but empathize with by the end. Don't know how we do that. The movie does exactly the same. You know what I mean? It's all kind of superficial. There is no depth to it, which is the sad thing. It puts forward questions that would be quite interesting to discuss, dig into, and it doesn't have the balls to do it, sadly. I would much rather kind of cover it up with nonsense, which is very, very, very good at. So
Yeah, and also there's kind of glimpses of like, well, this life is sort of, faking, like there's that opening with them having this, like glamorous paparazzi moment, and then you realize like, oh no, this is just in a shitty part of town. And it's they're staging all of this for the sake of social media, and that was really interesting. And then that kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah,
they movie,
and that's the bit that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Like I say, when she's confronted with elements of that after the fact, I'm like, this is really cool. This is really, really, really cool. But yeah, they don't go anywhere with it, which sadly is the frustrating part of the movie. And then when they do try to resolve like some deep-rooted family issue in here, it's just dumb. It's really, really, really dumb. And it's a shame. I mean, like I said at the time, I imagine that there will be a lot of people that will probably think that this is kind of cool and kind of relevant and kind of quirky, but those aren't, I think, real horror fans, if you know what I mean. I think those are people that stumble across to this movie. Even on Shudder, I know there's plenty of people out there that are not hardcore horror fans that have Shudder accounts because they like the occasional scare. I imagine that's the audience it's playing to. If you watch a lot of horror movies, it doesn't really do much to differentiate itself out with some quirky techniques used throughout the movie, which, like I say, I really enjoyed. I thought those were very smart and hid very well the low budget of the movie. But yeah, it's not. I mean, I will probably never watch it again. I imagine I will have forgotten about this movie by the end of the year. So
I think every time I see social media handled badly in a movie, I'll be like, that Shook movie, and I had the hardest time, Duncan, remembering the name of this goddamn movie.
Of course,
that Shook is so like it's way too generic. It needs to be anyway. Like there are so many things that are almost really good about Shook, and that's what makes it disappointing. It's not terrible. It just it reaches a logical point that or like an illogical inconsistency from characters that I'm like, I can't go with this movie to this place. This doesn't make any sense. And anyway, but that's my bad. Feel free to start with a good if you want, but I needed to get that off my chest, really.
I will double down with the Shudder titles. I had I think it was after our previous recording. I want to say that our buddy Alan McPherson had dropped a conversation about, I think it was maybe rape revenge movies that he was watching, like a group of them, and one that he mentioned specifically was Hunted, which is currently available on Shudder as well. So that night I checked it out because I remember him saying about it, and I was like, I've seen a couple of posters of it. I'm gonna take the plunge. I'm gonna check this out. It is a bad movie. Just like
really? It's kind of like a movie. I don't know if it's a rape revenge, but it's like a revenge kind of movie.
Well, it's essentially she's in a dance club at the beginning. She's hit on by a man. She goes out to the car. I think she thinks she's gonna have some sexy time in the car.
Sure, that sounds like
And
a good time.
yeah, and then someone gets into the car, and then she realizes she's being abducted, and they essentially shoot. It's never explicitly explained, but my understanding is it is either like a extreme rape video, which is for a collector, or it's a kind of snuff movie, which involves a lot of sexual torture. And they drive her out there, and she escapes on the road out there, and they try and track her down in the woods. So she is being hunted.
Oh, just like the title.
Yeah, just like the
Oh.
title.
Yeah, clever. I get it.
And
I see where
the
they're
acting
going.
the acting is terrible. The dialogue is terrible, and we have a woman who's oh god, she spends the majority of the movie trying to stay hidden in the woods while wearing a very vibrant red jacket, which she never takes off at
Oh,
any
so it's a
point.
Red Riding Hood kind of thing.
Oh god, yeah, I'm
Okay,
sure.
I
I'm
get
sure
it.
they're going for but it's just so painful
Let me.
to watch.
This just in from the chat. Breaking news. Alan McPherson coming in saying he was saying it was bad from the beginning. Is that true?
Yeah.
Did you know it was
Yeah.
bad going into this?
Yeah. I kind of had it like I had.
Oh,
a
you
feeling,
hypocritical son of a bitch! You
Well,
Ouija
I had-
experiment hating motherfucker.
No. We were talking specifically about tropes off the back of his question, and he raised it as an example of a badly used trope.
I got you.
So I was like that. I want to check this out because to me that I have when it's done right, that genre can be really grueling to watch. And part of me really likes feeling shitty about men after watching certain movies. So I really want to double dip, but it's not anything that you haven't seen before. And sadly, it just doesn't try and ever really elevate itself out of a very kind of almost in the back of a post-it note idea for a movie. And the main kind of antagonist in it is so fucking terrible, like just a character in general, that even when it comes to we're going to get retribution on him when the tables are turned, I just couldn't give a fuck like at all. I just like no fucks left to give for the movie. And yeah, like I say, just characters behave in a way which don't make sense. Like the woman in it seems relatively like she starts to kind of set up traps in a particular way, but like once again, she's running around with a red jacket on, and I'm like, I'd make like no fucking sense at all. And then there's a twist where like we're going to set up like this boy who lives in the wilderness with his survivalist mother into maybe a villain, and then they can't decide what they're doing with that, and then he behaves in a way which doesn't make sense. Like seeing is believing, but I would say do not see. So I took the bullet for this movie for the show. Don't do it. So there you go.
I mean, it sounds bad. Alan is again chiming in and saying like it is not good stuff. So
It's
yeah.
not at all. It really, I can't stress that enough. It's bottom barrel. I'm unsure why it's made its way onto Shudder, because even Shudder bad movies tend to be of a better quality than this. But yet, if you check it online, receiving relatively good reviews. So might just be that there's people out there that enjoy that sort of stuff more than I.
Just like a bad movie. I get it.
Maybe, yeah, like we spoke about this before. It's like when you sit down and watch, is it? I never get it right. Terrified, whichever one has Art the Clown in it.
Terrifier. Yeah.
Yeah, Terrifier. People rave about that movie,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it isn't. Yeah, like, but genuinely, Art's the greatest villain of all time, modern pop icon. Art, yeah, and I'm like that. But where are the characters? Like, where are the characters in this movie? Who am I supposed to root for? Am I supposed to root for Art because the movie goes out its way to make sure I don't gravitate or like any of the other characters who are not on screen enough, who are painfully dull? I think there is a prearranged audience that just want to see horrible things happen to people on screen, which is cool. It's just I like something a bit deeper than that, and this movie could have tried that, but it was too interested in. I think the visual aesthetic of, like you mentioned before, the little Red Riding Hood running through the woods being hunted by a villain character. I think they really liked that idea and decided to make an entire film of it, which you can do. It's just not this movie.
The Freeway is a good example of how to remake
Oh God,
Little
yes.
Red Riding Hood in a really interesting and weird way.
Yeah.
Alan also saying, check out What We Need to Survive, which I have not seen. I'm aware of that movie, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But all right, hey, let me give you my good though, and this is enthusiastic, Duncan. I kind of referenced this a little earlier in a different conversation, but I saw Nomad Land finally. I know this isn't a horror movie, but everybody just calm down.
Well, technically, this isn't a horror show.
I know. But you and I are both kind of in the horror world, so it feels.
We've been
like,
known to watch one or two occasionally.
on occasion, every now and again. I'm one of those people you mentioned that has the Shudder because I like a little scare now and again. And so I watched Nomad Land, which was it's on Hulu here in the States. You can just get it. You can just watch it, Duncan. Any old time.
Thanks,
I
Bo.
can watch
It's
it
not
right
out
now.
over here yet.
Get
Will
yourself-
be soon. When
Yeah.
it is, I will watch it.
So it is. Here's the thing that's kind of brilliant and beautiful about it, and I don't want to oversell it, but also everybody ever should see it. It is. It's the story of a woman played by Frances McDormand who, due to financial and just kind of shitty life circumstances, finds herself at a point in life where her husband has died. The place she used to work is a factory that no longer exists. The town that she lives in has kind of dried up. It's really just, what used to be a blip on the map isn't even that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kind of takes to the road, and there's this sort of loose community of people who live out of their vans or RVs or whatever and travel where the work is. Like during Christmas, they go to where Amazon has big packaging centers and they work there for a few months. And then during summer, there are like, sort of tourist trap restaurants and stuff that they go work for that season. And the thing that makes Nomadland fascinating is that in many cases, the characters in the movies are just slightly fictionalized versions of themselves, or maybe not fictional at all. And it's like Frances McDormand giving a performance. Like, again, it's one of those things where it's not even fair how good she is.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know if she's acting with this person who is not an actor who actually lives this life, or she is just connecting with them on such a human level and the acting is the sham of it. And it's really just almost a documentary that you're watching. And that's kind of the brilliant thing about the movie, is that you're never sure what's real and what's art. And maybe that makes all of it art,
Yeah.
It's, oh my God, what a beautiful film. And it's not just a bunch of random interconnected stuff. It's a real character arc of this character, like learning to sort of be able to move on with her life and so forth. And it's beautiful and it's captivating, and there's not a single frame of it that isn't just like intriguing or interesting, and it gets into kind of the ins and outs of living this life and what you need. Like there's a point where they have a whole class about which bucket you ought to be shitting in and stuff like that, and it's just like, man, it's all the stuff you kind of want to know once you understand that this really is this weird kind of subculture, but all these people are weirdly like broken in certain ways. And oh man, just what a beautiful piece of filmmaking. It's really something. It's one of those movies, like it'll go on to win Oscars and shit like that, and it'll be like, of course it did.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when you saw Schindler's List and you were like, well, that's the best movie I'm gonna see for a while. And that's how Nomadland was, where it was like, well, I won't see a better movie for a while now. It was everything movies ought to be. So
I can't wait to see it. She's on a tear just now, like in terms of choosing what she's at. Like she only does a movie every now and again, but when she does, by God, is she incredible in it.
Right, at some point she and Meryl Streep are just going to be in the same film together to see who can get the most Oscars for the
Gonna
same
break the
movie.
Academy.
Right.
Like the Academy will have to death fight to work out who
Yeah.
gets the Oscar.
It's but I mean it is there are moments in it where you're just like, "Oh, fuck you. You are
Yeah.
you're too good to be among us
Yeah.
mortals." Yeah, she's amazing in that movie. And David Strathairn, Mother from Sneakers,
But yeah.
is in it as well, and he's very good in it too. And then there are other, like I said, there are whole sections of that movie that are just Frances McDormand and people who are not actors, people who live on the road and do these jobs, and it's something. So anyway, what about you? What I can't, whatever paltry movie you've got, but let's hear it.
Like, there's been a ton of prep happening. In fact, this very day, myself, yourself, and the wonderful Jamie J. Salmons are going to sit down and continue on Podcast Under the Stairs looking at A24 movies. So that's kind of been my last couple of days. I've been kind of basking in the glow of kind of A24's output, which has allowed me to jump back through some movies that I hadn't seen since they came out, so a couple of years ago anyway, and other movies that I had just not seen before. And I know we're going to get into more detail about it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it here because I want to, obviously, for cross listening purposes, I want to get people to listen to the new episode when it drops. But the movie by the dude that made It Follows, whose name escapes me, David
Robert Green, David Mitchell Green, David
Mitchell
Green Mitchell.
I think yeah, one of them, all of them, none of them.
Some of them.
Yeah, some combination. So he made It Follows, and then he fell off the radar for me, and I was like, oh well, that's interesting. But he then did do a movie for A24 called Under the Silver Lake, and I briefly remember it coming out, but Bo, for the life of me, I don't know why I didn't check it out, like at all. I think it was maybe because I knew on some level it wasn't a horror movie. And that isn't a prerequisite for me watching movies either, which is the frustrating part. I just didn't check it out. So, I got a chance to sit down and watch it. And it's like this movie was made for me. I would go one step further. I would say it's like this movie was made for Duncan and Bo, I'm correct.
Yeah.
Because it encompasses so much I love about like specific parts of cinema. It's essentially a kind of a comedy neo-noir movie. And
yeah,
it plays
for sure.
it plays very much in that pool. It kind of has all the sensibilities and weirdness of something like David Lynch without overtly trying to be Lynchian, or trying to be. It just has a good sense of idea of, right, this is how noir movies should be constructed, and we're going to follow one mystery that's going to lead to a bigger mystery. But at the same time, it really gets into the idea about what it's like to be in the fringes of LA, the idea of obsession and of loneliness.
And celebrity and that
Yeah.
existentialist angst of meaningfulness with your
Yeah.
life, and it deals with every subject.
It deals with all of it, and I like, obviously when it finished, I was like, oh, I need to go online and see what people made. And the generally it was received not that well, which
Yeah.
surprises me, because one watch out of it, I got so much out of it. So, and it appears that people didn't like the idea of it just going as broad as it does. It's just over a 2-hour movie, so it takes its time to go to the places that it needs to go. And I enjoyed that journey. I like the further it went down. Andrew Garfield is absolutely brilliant in it. And I don't really rate him as an actor, if I'm honest. I think he's okay in the things I've seen him in before. And he's always been that kind of, he's in a movie as a supporting actor, and I love him in those roles. But as a leading man, I've never been on the front line banging the drum, and he is jaw-droppingly good in this. And yeah, just you come across all these weird, almost Coen Brothers-esque characters on your journey throughout the movie. So it's definitely paying nods to that. It's definitely paying nods to Lynch. And There's even a bit of kind of weirdness, a la kind of Neil Gaiman, not Neil Gaiman. What's his face?
Neil Simon.
Oh, no,
Neil Simon's Under the Silver
no.
Lake. It's a hilarious veteran farce.
No, Tom
What?
Monkey's dead.
You a 50-ish fading starlet who goes topless the whole movie. What are you doing here?
What's we spoke about him like a couple of years ago, like full show and podcast Under the Stairs. Did 12 Monkeys, did
Terry Gilliam? Is that who you're
Terry
thinking
Gillingham.
of? Yeah.
There's Gillingham-esque characters that make appearances. Like most notably, the homeless man that wears the crown.
Yeah,
Feels
the
like
homeless
he's come-
king. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like he's just come straight from a Terry Gillingham movie.
How is that character not played by Tom Waits? That is a real
and they missed a
oversight.
beat.
Yeah.
They missed a beat. Yeah,
I'm
I
the
think
homeless king. Come with me.
But yeah, it's the sort of movie that I felt ashamed that it's not in my collection. So I am in the process of rectifying it. I've actually ordered the Blu-ray because I watched it. I screened it digitally, and when it finished, I was like, "No, I want to own that." So yeah, it was a shock and a surprise. I think it has a couple of flaws, but for the most part, it's a really enjoyable movie. Like really, really, like if you're into that genre, which I am, I love noir. I love when people try and make contemporary versions, but try and stick true to what makes those kind of classic noir movies work. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
I have to give credit where credit is due here. Alan McPherson chiming in with Blake Edwards' It Follows, which is a wonderful idea. It's like yeah, well, you know, the monster, the it of the movie, like his dick would glow.
Yeah.
Like skin deep. That was a thing that Blake Edwards got so like heady with success in cocaine that he wrote and made as a movie. Starring everyone's favorite John Ritter.
He's had a weird a weird career, Bo.
David Robert Mitchell, by the way, is the director of It Follows and Under the
Thank
Silver
you.
Lake,
I knew it was I knew it was a triple barrel name, but so's the dude that did Halloween.
Right. I
so-
get David Gordon Green, I think is that gentleman's name.
That's
But I do get those two confused because look, unless you are going to be committing a series of horrible serial murders, I do not need three names.
No, I agree with you. Unless you're going to assassinate a president, I think that's the drill. You
Hey,
just have three names.
you know what's a totally fine director's name? David Mitchell.
David Mitchell. David Mitchell is a famous British comedian as well.
Oh well, that's probably why.
If you've never seen it, I will send you things of him. You ever seen the TV show Peep Show?
I don't believe I have.
Right, you need to get on board with this. He's your sort of comedian, and then some.
How dare you?
But yeah, so like I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that was there was only 2 movies in this rung of A24 movies that I hadn't seen. And actually, to be honest, with the last 2 movies from their genre output, so stuff that isn't, family drama or an indie comedy, these were the kind of the final 2 to tick off the list. And I'm glad I did, because both of them were strong for their own reasons, and that one in particular really resonated with me in a way that it would go really well. See, if you wanted to double bill it and have some, just because of the comedy in it, you could double bill it with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and it would work
totally,
really well.
Yeah. Or I would even say the New Guys.
The New Guys is a great shout. Is a great like triple bill it, do all 3.
You got yourself a good Sunday. You do something like that.
Give yourself a good hangover Sunday where you don't need to concentrate too much on the mystery, because that's not the point.
I'll tell you, here's the thing that makes me unacceptable as a person in society, Duncan. Is I woke up this morning. I fell asleep kind of early last night. Woke up at like 4:30 today. Raring to go. And so I was getting some work done early morning. and ended up like, I was going to save this till kind of the break in between recording this and the A24 show. But let's just start my day with a good old-fashioned Yorgos Lanthimos break. So I watched Killing of a Sacred Deer before recording this.
4:30 in the morning.
I probably started at about 5:30.
Oh.
Which is a weird way to start your day, Duncan. I'm not sure it was the right way to go.
Like humans, and an ending that is just so painfully fucking cold.
Yes, Duncan. We're going to continue the show now, Duncan. I love that fucking movie, though.
It's so good. It's so... He is so fucking good as a director. It's like scary how good he is. And people are like, oh, that movie, The Favourite, it won awards and all the rest. And I'm like, yes, but have you seen the movies before? Like, have you seen The Lobster? Because you really need to watch The Lobster.
No, like, this is one of those things where I really, really love Killing of a Sacred Deer, and I have not seen everything that Yorgos Lanthimos has directed.
You've not seen The Favourite yet, still haven't you?
I still haven't seen The Favourite. I haven't seen The Lobster.
Oh, dude, it's so fucking good.
Yeah,
it really is.
I know. And it's just that I'm like, I don't know that I need another Killing of a Sacred Deer in my life, where it took me like three.
It's not like that. It's a different sort of weird.
I know, but it's like with there are certain directors that I'm like this with, where I gotta kind of watch a movie a couple of times to warm up to it. And that's how I feel about Killing of a Sacred Deer, where the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't think I like that movie very much. And then by the third time I watched it, I was like, I swear to God, I would sacrifice somebody that I loved to continue to watch this movie on a regular basis.
I think that's where me and you are like we come in quite a lot on movies, but that's where me and you are like different though. Like I like embrace the weird right off the bat. Like the first time I watched that movie, I was like, this is like a stone cold killing masterpiece. Like just the genuine like drop on the floor. But I have many friends who watched it the first time and were like, it's the language, it's just the way people it's so off-putting. I felt chilled when I felt not great for a couple of days after it, but then they went back to a second time knowing that that's the prerequisite. Like characters are just not going to speak like normal people speaking in an interaction. They're going to have a particular cadence which is off kilter, and then like once they watch it the second time though, they come back and they're like, this is so fucking dark and great. And I'm
it's so funny, man. It once you realize how actually funny the movie is.
Oh, it's very funny, yeah.
But I mean, it's just the darkest of comedy.
Yeah.
But the Colin Farrell, I know I've said this before, and this is a brief preview of the A24 show later. Colin Farrell telling his kid, I'll shave your head and I'll make you eat your hair. Is that what you want? To eat all your hair? Fucking slays me. It is so funny. Him threatening, I will literally make, I'm not kidding around here. I will literally make you eat all your hair.
Is it like, this is what I love it. You must have, as an actor, it's a Lynchian thing again. You must have a complete confidence and faith in your director to do that. It's like, I told you before, like, there's a great, it's on one of the award things, and it's Naomi Watts talking about working with David Lynch, and it was to do with Twin Peaks: The Returned, and I think it's the scene where she goes in to basically like have a go at the guys that own the casino to do with the family debt and all the rest. And like she does her thing, and like she says to like David Lynch like barks out commands using a megaphone. Like as you do, but apparently he was right beside her and he's like, you're really angry, you got to get mad, like this. Just like shout at her, and she's like, okay, but he'll talk to you while you're performing, like, so in the bits in between. So they must obviously, sound guys must be incredible to take it as stuff, but like when she'll say things, if there's a break, you'll be like, now you're angrier, you're like, like just in the like constantly in your, and the absurdist stuff that they have to do in his movies and in that TV show in particular, you have to have 100% confidence that you're doing his vision and he's David Lynch, and look at everything he's done, that's going to look fucking great. Because if you don't, there will be a certain part where you must be like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, why am I dressed like this? Well, why am I speaking to a talking teapot? I mean, like, what are we doing right now? You know, like, and that, I think that's why, like, he works with the same. He's got that same core group of actors that come back to work with him. It's just those ones that just really live in the moment of David Lynch's whims and
Or just don't give
imagination.
him shit about it. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just don't want to have to explain myself over
like-
and
like-
over.
But there must be a point when you hear stories of working with certain directors, right? And then you like appear to work with them and you have that experience. But then on the back end, like to me, I would always be thinking, just do what he says because this is David Lynch and everything I'd ever seen him do is incredible. So this is just the process. The process is different from what it is everywhere else, but that's how he gets what he gets out of it. So,
Yeah,
but there's like, I think Yorgos is exactly the same. That I feel like when I'm watching these movies, there must be a point where the actor's like, why am I doing this? But then, you know, like you see the end result, and the end result is chilling. So you have to, it's the process, Bo. It's the process.
Yeah, and clearly he has that kind of relationship with Colin Farrell at this point where he's just like
He's a fucking woefully underrated actor. I keep saying that. He's
100% yes.
such a great actor, such a versatile actor.
Yeah.
Like you look at Killing of a Sacred Deer and then you remember In Bruges, and they are two completely different, like two like but at the same time destructive performances of characters that are wallowing in the, you know, the afterglow of mistakes they've made, but completely differently performed. You know, like on different scales. You know, one being more monotone and clinical, to the other one being kind of over the top and almost comical. It's, you know, I give him all the roles.
Yeah.
I give him more roles.
Yeah, he's right. Colin Farrell's amazing.
He's great.
Well, let us shift now, Duncan.
Shift
Look,
the gear.
people like to bring us questions, and
Yeah, and we will say that I do have a question beer to open.
oh,
It's a can of answers, Bo. A can of honesty.
the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, as has been pointed out before. So, folks, feel free to drop a question into the chat if you have one. I got one lined up from the Ram Man.
Oh, bring it.
And he says, let me move my bottle of water to read the question, Duncan. It's fine. Just a small technical problem. Don't worry about it. He says, recently the director of My Bloody Valentine said he still hopes to do a sequel titled Valentine Wakes. Do you think this could work, or will it just cheapen the open-ended mystery of the original?
Is it an open-ended mystery?
I mean, there's a song that's just like, hey, it's this dude.
Yeah, like I thought it was pretty resolved at the end. I might
Oh,
be wrong. Like
okay.
I like, sadly, it's one of those movies where the remake has kind of clouded my mind more than the original. I've seen the original a handful of times. If I'm honest, I don't really rate My Bloody Valentine that high. It's great for the kind of exploitation slasher that it is, but it's always to me is the, like when someone says at the start of the movie that they're going on a trip, they're the killer.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of Scream, because when Sydney's dad goes on a trip, as the audience, you're supposed to be led to believe that he's the killer, and they subvert your expectations there. But in terms of like My Blood, I thought that was well resolved.
Yeah,
Yikes.
I think the larger question, and what I think is interesting about this, isn't so much, I mean, should the director of the original My Bloody Valentine be able to make a prequel called Valentine Wakes or whatever? Sure. Like,
Oh, is it a prequel? Right. But even
then, or, you know, whatever, or a sequel called Valentine Wakes, I guess. But at any rate,
I like the name, but I don't.
but when you expect to see David Boreanaz in a movie called Valentine Wakes, let's be real.
Yeah, that's the movie I want to see. Is the sequel to that one? The sequel to Valentine, please. Yeah, like I don't know. Like I imagine there is an inbuilt fandom for it. To me, one of the better things about that movie is that it's not a franchise and there wasn't a sequel. You know what I mean? So I didn't have enough time to have sequels to cheapen it. At the same time, though, everyone should be listen. If the guy's got a cool idea and he wants to bring it to the screen, make it. You know what I mean? You owe it to yourself. It's a competently made movie, but at the same time, I'm like, why not? Like, that's the movie you're famous for, so I get the inclination. It's probably easier for you to make a movie which is a sequel to that movie in terms of getting financing and all the rest. But just tell a different story.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
all right. The question to me is this just a dude who is kind of older now and is like, hey, you know what would be good for my retirement? Valentine Wakes.
Well, yeah, like, but there's the other part as well. Is like, and I'm seeing like on the chat thing here, someone's put, doesn't he escape at the end of the original?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think he does. But where are we setting it? Are we setting it now in 2021? In that case, the killer is now what 40 years older than he was then, and he wasn't no spring chicken then. So we're doing the Halloween thing where we're following around like old man mind mask. As he goes around, I don't know if was anyone like see when you build the Mount Rushmore of slasher movies, is My Bloody Valentine on that list?
Well, all right. Counter argument, Duncan. If it please the court,
oh dear.
I would like to offer exhibit remake / sequel, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is a movie nobody wanted, but turned out to be real good.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good point, but that was made by modern directors who had an interesting take on the genre. Like, it was the guys basically behind American Horror Story that did that.
Yeah,
so they've been playing it in that pool for a while. This is the original guy coming back. This is the original guy that made, sorry, I don't want to upset people, relatively derivative slasher movie back in 81, wanting to return to make a sequel to said derivative slasher movie in 2021.
So you don't think 40 years later he's like, Eureka! I've got a way to reinvent the slasher movie.
I've done it again.
Right. Oh, you did it again, Marty. Oh, pat yourself on the back. Yeah.
I always get the feeling that when has this ever worked well? You know what I mean? When has ever a direct sequel to a movie 40 years ago worked well?
What was the business in with the guy who did Robin Hardy, the guy who did the Wicker Man? What was that? The years later, the Wicker Tree.
The Wicker Tree is goddamn awful.
Right. This is my point.
It is as nigh on. In fact, if anything, put side by side with the Wickerman remake, the Wickerman remake looks like high art.
Well, come on, man.
How did it get burned, Bo? How did it get burned? That's a question we all have to ask ourselves. No, it's really, really, really. But I think there's a like I say, unfortunately, George A. Romero got stuck with this, right? And it was easier for Romero to make another of the Dead movie, right? Because he would get financing for that than it would be for him to make any other movie after a certain point. They just, you're the zombie guy. And it's a horrible thing. I think, like, filmmakers that have shown to have an aptitude, which even then, I don't know if I would say the guy that made My Bloody, I'm taking pot shots, unfair pot shots. Well, I've not got a movie. But it's okay for what it is. For a Scooby-Doo mystery. That's literally what it is. It's the minor killer. You know what I mean? That's right from Scooby-Doo. So, Old Man Minor. I just don't. I don't. I'm sure he has like 100 great ideas of how to continue that on. I just don't think, personally speaking, that when that movie finished, I was like, well, it got away. Can't wait to see what they do next. I was just like, right, it got away at the end. Good for this movie. It did something slightly different from the other ones where we usually get a dead killer. It just never screamed to me. It'd be like the director of Curtains in 2021 going, Eureka! I've done it again. I've got this idea for Curtains 2, Final Curtains.
Popcorn 2, repopped.
It's those ideas where like part of the charm of those movies is they are one and done. So I always go back to The Burning. The Burning as a standalone movie is kind of fucking great. But had there been a Burning 2, a Burning 3, a Burning 4, I think it wouldn't be as remarkable. The reason that movie kind of stands out as much as it does is because not only Savini's effects in it and the cast that are in it that went on to do bigger and better things, is that it could very easily have been another Friday the 13th, but just didn't do that. So it got all the elements that you want from that first slasher condensed in there, and it didn't feel the need to continue on. And I think that in itself is something to celebrate. Now, this guy wanted to make more movies. If he's got something else to say, let him say it. I just don't think that... I just can't remember hearing anyone ever say, I can't wait for My Bloody Valentine 2. And that to me is usually a good indicator that people are either satisfied or not interested when that movie finishes. There, it does what it needs to do. Yeah, and that was a lot more negative than I intended that to come out, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
but
you went dark on us.
It's just not a movie that I think is... like I said before, like you sit me down and say, right, you can greenlight and finance a new movie. Is either going to be Behind the Mask 2 or fucking, My Bloody Valentine 2. I'm going Behind the Mask. The fact that we're in 2021 and that does not have a sequel is fucking criminal. And that is a movie that sets itself up for a sequel.
4 words, Duncan. Lost After Dark 2.
Yes.
What the fuck happened?
Well,
Where's the lazy ass writer of that movie?
You tell me that you had a sequel in the works for that.
If we had done better money, we would have done one. Yes, there is a sequel
Did you tell them it had mutant babies?
I tried to explain how cool it would be to have mutant babies that you could literally stab with a pitchfork.
I just love it. I love the idea, the boardroom meeting, and you and Ian are on one side, and the producers and all the rest are on the other side. They're like, I mean, we're just looking at the numbers, and the numbers, I mean, they're good, but they're just not. What I'm saying is, we might not have a sequel here, and you being like that did from the History Channel. It's like aliens. I've got one phrase for you. Mutant babies. And
right.
Like,
have you thought about mutant babies at all? I mean, just consider, and I'm not talking just in cribs. I'm talking on the floor, in the walls, on the ceiling. They're all over the goddamn place. And how
they're in the walls, goddammit, in the walls.
Right, like little rats, but they're babies, and they've got gross teeth and shit. How much fun would that be to shoot and or poke them?
Well, all you need to do, listen, all this news story is telling me, Bo, is all you have to do is wait 40 years and then come back and pitch a Lost After Dark 2.
Right. Hey, guys, I got it.
I did it again.
Right. You did it again, Bo. All right. Speaking of great slasher movies.
Lost After Dark, check it out.
Yes, please. As I've often said, buy 3,000 or 4,000 copies, and you too can see mutant babies. It's really all I want, people. That and my Twin Peaks cult. I want my Lost After Dark sequel, and I want my Twin Peaks cult, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
It's not too much to ask, Bo.
I've still got good years left to make those things happen.
If everyone that listened to us prattle, this is what I'm going to use, spent $5 or something on buying a copy of that movie, then that's a step towards that sequel.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't
every time someone has a birthday in your family, buy them a copy of Lost After Dark.
Here's the thing. It's available for rental on some of the streaming services. You don't even have to watch it, people. You just rent it and let it play. Or don't,
do something
or
else?
just rent it.
You should actually watch it. It's surprisingly fun. I say surprisingly fun. The reason I say it's surprisingly fun is the whole time I've known you, the kind of disclaimer that comes with Bo is, I don't like slasher movies.
Yeah.
Here, I've written a slasher movie. So I was like that. Oh, this is Bo just going to be like, oh, this is dumb slasher movies. Look at me. I'm a dumb slasher. Like that. But it was actually surprisingly well.
Well,
So, like, I would have thought I'd been written by someone that had been watching and enjoyed slashers all their life.
It was certainly written by someone who'd watched a lot of slasher movies, and was like, "Hey, if I did, what was the slasher movie I would like to watch?"
Yeah,
And-
it kind of feels like they should have got you into write season 1 of Slasher available on Netflix.
All right, let's get into this son of a bitch.
Segue.
Well played, sir. So let's get into this. This is episode 5. It is called Ill-Gotten Gains, which is separate from Chris Gaines, aka Garth Brooks.
Oh, the ill-gotten gains is kind of where we are right now, 5 episodes in.
So, Duncan, we open on what is essentially a Massengill commercial, where a young lesbian couple are walking through a field with
question
a dog.
mark? Young question
Ish.
mark?
And they're walking through this field of golden wheat with the dog from summer school.
Yep.
And
You remember me.
on the fields of heaven.
Is literally Sting singing in the background.
Uh-huh.
As we cross the years ago.
And so this couple, one of them is taking pictures, and the other one clearly doesn't give a shit about her girlfriend taking pictures of anything. And
No,
it's
she
just
wants
like,
to squeeze that tit.
right?
She's all about those titties.
She is. She's just like, hey, how about we go home and fuck? And
She's like, you can take a photo of the birds. I want to see those birdies right now.
yeah, she apparently is a fan of Duncan and Bo Cup Correct, because she's like, hey, I've been listening to this podcast and they've been saying we should be fucking.
We should be fucking right now. Forget the dog, forget the pictures. Well, the thing about this is, like, I'll tell you, the thing it did right for me right at the start here is it gave me these 2 characters, and I'm like, do I need to remember another 2 fucking characters that are going to be in this for an episode, and we'll reveal their sin, and then they're gone. And this show's like, no, don't worry about that.
Don't even worry about these characters. This is all they're good for. But so they start making out, and the dog starts barking. They're like, shut up, we're trying to fuck. And then finally they're like, all right, we got to go see what's going on with the dog. And then
dog is having the best day of its life, by the way. The tail's going, it's nose deep in something it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's a real, just going after or something. And
it's a real, I have now had the taste of human flesh. I will kill you in your sleep, owners.
Oh yeah, you got to put this dog down, Duncan. 100%. Like, that's the thing they don't talk about on this show, but absolutely. Because what happens is this dog has come across the body of June, who was the lady that got kidnapped at the end of the last episode, and given, like, she woke up in the field with the IV and the honeycomb on her boobies and her.
Yeah, which by the state of 1, decomposition, 2, insect larvae. I mean, there's so much, like, maggots and all the rest in her. She's missing pretty much most of her rib cage.
Full body farm.
Yeah, like she has been consumed by the earth. If you've ever watched the music video for Hurt by Nine Inch Nails, is when the kind of sped up animated Fox decomposition video, which I think is a famous video anyway.
I was going to go Peter Gabriel's Digging in the Dirt, but go on.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's basically like there's far too much insect activity in her, and bits missing from her from the 2 rats that we saw, who are apparently full and just decided to fuck off. They've not stayed there to continue eating. And like something like that, she's been there for a while. You know what I mean? Because that's the only way that would explain this horrendous condition of her body. And then we literally like something like that, or that's Jin. So Bo said at the end of the last episode, I think they'll find Jin. Bo, they did not find Jin.
Well,
and
they do.
Well, not alive.
No,
and
not
also,
alive.
What's more even frustrating about this is they have not, and I'm going to do a spoiler for this entire episode, have not explained what happened to Jin, why she ended up in that position.
No, they have not said like this is her sin and whatever.
Nothing. And I'm gonna go on record and I'm gonna say we won't. I think this is gonna be a plot
That
hole in
feels-
this fucking show. I think they're just not gonna circle around it. They're gonna like just leave it kind of hanging because this show doesn't look back, but only looks forward. Only has.
It's much like is it Rafiki the monkey from The Lion King? It's in the past. You know, it's that. It's
But like we're literally like full steam ahead, and then we transition from there, Bo, to, and this is what we were saying. I think before we hit record for this show, or maybe you might get a clip of it right at the start. The next scene is like everyone at Cam's house, and they're all having something to drink and eating like nibbles and all the rest.
Yeah.
And logically, your brain is like, and I was thinking to myself, finally, we're skipping a funeral. Thank fuck. Because you know how funerals happen really quick in the show Slasher, as in the same day. I'm glad that they've skipped over this and we're straight to the wake. And I'm like, phew. And I'll tell you the first warning, the warning thing that come up for me was our mainstay, Sarah, to be sure, goes up to speak to the Cam's dad, father red herring, and she goes up to speak to him, and she's like, and he's like, yeah, about yesterday, and I'm like, yesterday? No, yeah, like, she's like, he said that stuff about me where, like, I'm the reason Death's come to town, all the rest. It's like, listen, he was emotional because he's too bubbly that his daughter-in-law's dead. He's just like, hey, I used to think that you love me. It's like total Katrina in the Waves in the Ears. And he's just like, and I'm like, yesterday, and I'm like, no, fuck off. And Slasher's like, no, that's what we're giving you, because within seconds, Cam is being pulled out by the sheriff, who, by the way, once again has one of the greatest lines in this episode about her being a failed artist, which I'm like, that, just give this guy a sideshow. I want to watch his spin-off show, like Frasier, but him just like putting down residents.
now that Brenda's gone, he's all we got. You know,
he's all we got. We've got to hold on to him. He's a national fucking treasure.
Hold on for one more day.
I love how musical we are today.
Uh-huh.
He takes him outside, delivers the news to Cam, who keels over, and I'm like, oh, they've just found the body, and she was missing less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
She went missing middle of the day, like the day before in the church. And now, like, that was a morning walk, and she is mostly consumed by animals in the earth.
Yeah, well,
Does
right,
time
right,
work
like
differently in Slasher?
Chief Brimley like pulls him outside and is like, because Sarah is watching all this through the window.
Oh, she's so nosy. She's the nosiest character ever.
She's a real
She's like
busybody.
Jessica Fletcher.
Yeah,
She is. She's a modern Jessica Fletcher. Everyone that she interacts with dies horribly, and she's really nosy to find out. Except, unlike Jessica Fletcher, she doesn't solve the mystery.
No, yeah. Look, again, we're gonna get to this scene where the chief is just like, "All right, goddammit, just stop." Anyway, but he is telling Cam, he's like, "Listen, you know how June was a dog lover? Well, Cam, I got good news, and I got some goddamn bad news, and." And then we immediately cut to the autopsy where there's a doctor who is just like, what are you people doing here? Because it's Cam, his father, the Reverend.
Yeah, who's not here to give last rites. Those should have been done a while ago.
Right, the chief, like, and the doctor is just like, look, I guess, do you want me to just, are you going to call anybody else in? And they're like, oh, this is it, goddammit. What? Now, how did she die? And he's like, she died of her chest. It was a paralytic. And eventually she stopped breathing, so she kind of smothered to death. And Cam is like, just tell me it was fast. And he's like, no, not at all. It was
long and painful.
It was probably terrible. Because, I mean, she was paralyzed, but she was alive. And
she was in constant pain. I believe her last words might have been, Cam, save me, please.
Yeah, she had scratched it into the ground. Like, it was, even though she was paralyzed, like one finger. Like, do you ever see that movie, The Burrowers? Kind of like that. Had one finger that worked, and she carved into the ground, "Help me, Cam."
Yeah.
And then in much smaller letters at the end, "You never came, you bastard. This is all your fault." So that's how she went.
Also,
And-
Cam, you might be the killer.
Yeah, right. And you're probably the murderer. So,
Oh, so good.
and Cam is like, "Just show me your body." And the doctor's like, Look, I have seen some bodies in my time, but this is particularly gross."
Yeah.
And
What is seen cannot be unseen.
right, and Cam's like, "No, show me her body." And he's like, "All right, man." And he pulls the bag open, and Cam's like, "Yeah, that's her." And I was like, "Wait, was that the question? Where they
Yeah.
I thought we already knew it was her."
We knew it was June. Like, yeah, that's definitely her. So glad that the last image that you have of your missing wife is, the maggot-infested skull carcass.
Right, yeah, we couldn't get all the maggots off, so sorry. We're, still washing. And his father, the Reverend Allen, Reverend Herring.
Reverend Herring's the best name ever.
I think that's what we're going with now. So he kind of hugs his son. He's like, "Come on, son, we got to go." And Kev's just like, "Shut up! Get away from me, you stupid Reverend." And he wants some time alone with the body or something. And everybody's like, "Well, I mean, it's not customary, but then again, we also invited a county fair's worth of people into this room
Yeah.
to look at this body, so whatever."
Are you sure you wouldn't rather have Sarah here with you?
Right.
I mean, I think her husband's a journalist. Like, he could be here as well.
Hi, Toy, did I hear me name? I'm always available for a good autopsy. Whose is it? So, if you remember, Duncan, we have a new member of our team, Lisa Ann Fellows, the reporter from the big city.
Big deal reporter
Yeah.
from the city.
So she is interviewing essentially Dylan, or she. Or, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I apologize. Different scene. She is reporting Dylan and Robin are watching this report at the bar while she's interviewing Allison and
Alison, owner of the paper.
You're right. I'm sorry. Fucking all this up. It's Sarah and Robin watching on television as Lisa Ann interviews Dylan and Allison. There.
Now, why?
That's what's happening.
Here's the question: why would she be? So I obviously don't watch a lot of American news. I'm unsure why she would be interviewing two reporters in the studio about a case that was current. You would generally, like in the UK, and this is bringing my, like, you would have maybe one reporter there who's, leading on the case, can give, like, and it's never done in a sort of salacious sort of way. It's always done in a kind of like, right, the facts, what are the police saying about this, whatever. Like, these, like, the way she interviews them is if these are criminal investigators working the case. You know what I mean? Like, questions aren't, well, what are the police saying about this just now, or whatever. She's deliberately saying to them, well, this wouldn't be in the motives of the killer, as if these two people here are psychologists or whatever. It just didn't make sense to me. Well, this whole scene doesn't make sense. I know why it's here, because it pays off deliciously later on. Oh boy, does it. But at the moment, I was just kind of watching them going, what are we doing here? Like, she's asking questions. Of course, Dylan's taken all the limelight because it turns out Allison is kind of shit when the camera's on.
Yeah, completely blows it. They're like, Lisa Ann Fellows throws her a couple of questions out, and Allison's just like, awa, awa, awa.
It would be like, obviously this is more a visual joke here for those that are checking out the video, but it would be like Bo saying, hey Duncan, what's your good and your bad? And I'm like, movies,
Right.
things.
They're killer come to town and make everyone feel bad.
London.
Yeah, and finally,
Gotta poop.
and every time this happens, Dylan's like, I think what Allison means to say is sorry
in
to
the
be
beginning of time, there was
Yeah.
nothing, but then the god creates. It's like she's 2 seconds away from saying, I got to poop," and then run off screen. It's
Did-
just like, you know what I mean? It's like she's so bad at this, and I was
yeah.
thinking, well, I was one thinking, why is she there? She's not the reporter; she's the owner of the paper. And she wasn't actually doing any investigation until this episode, Bo. But she wasn't doing it. So why is she there? And the second thing, like, she is really confident and she knows what she's set up all this stuff. I can't imagine this is the first time she's been in front of the cameras.
Yeah. It's really, again, the characters behave the way we need them to behave for this story to do what
Not the
it's
way
gonna
we want them to
stupidly do.
behave,
Right.
just the way we need them to.
And right. And so there's a commercial break or something, and Lisa Ann Fellows is like, "Hey, Dylan, you're a natural. You're
Yeah.
awesome. I might fuck you later." Wink, wink.
There is a
And-
bit of that in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they cut back to the bar, and Robin is like, "Boy, he is a natural," and Sarah's like, "Yeah, he sure seems to be." Like, she's all angry about it. I'm like, why aren't you happy for your husband?
I think it's the like, she obviously knows her husband in one light, and that is this caring, supportive person. And now she's seeing the real Dylan. And the real Dylan is a guy that appears to, because I think at one point he doubles down on issues specifically to do with Cam, that he's just plucking out his ass. You know, like, just literally, yeah, I'd like, well, the police say this, but, you know, there's this whole other thing going on. And I'm like, well, we're jumping to conclusions here, aren't we? We're making this sensational when it doesn't need to be, Bo. Doesn't need to be sensational. And obviously she's seen it from this point of view of, who is this guy that I'm married to?
Right.
Because it's very different from what you would expect from him. But at the same time, we're like, come on, he's been kind of going that way for a while. It's not the biggest heel turn in the history of online news. You know, he's like, he didn't want to go with you when you wanted to leave because he wanted to stay and finish his 2 weeks notice. Yeah. He seems to be doing kind of fine since your grandmother died. He seems to be coping quite well with all this death and mystery in town. You know what I mean? There's just, like, you clearly don't know who you've married, and you're now starting to see it. And guess what? You kind of don't like it. And that is interesting, Mo.
Yeah. So she decides she's going to go get some air. Robin goes with her. And then we cut from them to Tom Winston, the town serial killer, who's meeting with Reverend Herring.
Yeah.
And there's a great bit where as soon as they sit down, Tom Winston is like, "So, Reverend Herring, do you have my envelope?" And he's like, well, yeah, nice to see you too, Tom Winston."
Yeah.
And it's like,
Mr.
wait a
Serial Killer
second.
Man.
Are you really gonna bitch about the formal politeness of the town serial killer?
Yeah,
Are
he's
you
like, well,
guys that
but he leans into the, you know, like, he's saying like, know how you doing or anything like that. I just buried my daughter-in-law, and I'm like, but we buried her. Like, oh yeah, of course we have, because this is Waterbury,
right.
and that's what we do here. Like, everyone goes in the ground fast.
She's already been buried. The tombstone got stolen. They had to replace it, but the insurance covered it. It was fine. All that happened in the space of about 36 hours.
It's so like
Yeah.
it's so fast. I love how like shitty he is, because like obviously he knows that fact now, and he's just like, oh yeah, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Do you have the fucking envelope? And he's like, oh, here. So he hands the envelope over to him as if, you know, like, you know, this won't give you the peace that you need or the answers that you want. And I'm like, it clearly will. One, give him the answers that he wants, and two, give him the peace he wants, because he wants to find out if or not he is Sarah's Fazia.
Yeah, well, and this is where I think the show is subverting my expectation.
Yeah, I
because-
don't think he's going to be either now.
Right, but here's the fucked up thing, though, Duncan, is that we're having this conversation about how Tom Winston is not really her father based on this his reaction to opening this envelope and being like, "Gods, take me back to my cell immediately. I can't stand to look at Reverend Harry anymore." And but that's all based on a presumption we made about this character and his motivations, and then his reaction to a thing that we still don't know. And I'm like, man, we are 5 episodes into this, and I'm on a roller coaster of, is he the father? Is he not the father? And
this
not
is the
once,
soap opera stuff that I'm talking about,
Yeah,
though.
but
It's
no
playing
one's ever-
soap opera games.
but somebody should be like, somebody should put a finer point on it. Like the Reverend at that point should say, that's right, she's not your daughter, and let's have this out in the open and be done with it instead of stringing us along for 2 more episodes for a story we are already ahead of.
Yeah, it's very, like I say, it's all that kind of, and I have the answer now and I will take it to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Come on, let's just get this fucking out of the way or pay it off in this episode. And it's like, no, you shan't know. And I will keep this for at least another 2 episodes because they're not going to tell you in episode 6. There's no, although in saying that, there is a setup at the end of this episode that might lead to a will lead to a confrontation, whether that's in episode 6 or 7, that's left to be seen. But it's all very, we'll give you enough in this, because that's the only time he's in this episode, with a shoddy porno of him back in the 80s. And that's the only time he's here, and this entire episode is just to receive this envelope. And that's
You say shoddy, Duncan. I say that transfer is one of the best VHS to DVD transfers.
From the 80s,
Yeah.
yes. Like,
Yeah.
as someone who unashamedly will say that in 1996, when I, oh dear, when I was, what would I have been, 15, I bought from a friend a copy of a porno on VHS, which was made in the 90s. There ain't no way it looks that good. Ming's already looked like it'd been fucking worn out by the time I got it. It's like, can I see a tit there? Or is that just the tracking?
Yeah.
But this is immaculate. This is the biggest, like, Bang Bros have shown up with the full team to fucking shoot this skit back then. On digital, which didn't exist at that point, just so we can have this transfer. It is like you can count the chest hairs on Tom's chest. That's awesome. That's how clear. This is fucking 4K UHD. Comes with special features, a bonus serial killer commentary over the top of it. I think I might be Sarah's father, but we won't know until episode 6 or 7.
I like that, right? Like when she fires up the DVD with or without commentary. Like, whoa, well. And there I was, entering your mother, Santa. I assume it's you watching these DVDs.
She asked me if I was wearing a rubber. I said yes, but I was not. She couldn't seem to tell, but I could.
I poked a hole in it, Sarah. I did it because I wanted to put a ring on it.
I call it the human sprinkler. Because when you go with,
oh no,
you know what I mean? No, is that bad? Is that too far?
It's like putting your thumb over the end of a hose, Sarah. You poke a small hole, it makes the stream stronger.
I never cross the streams, Sarah. Never cross the streams.
This is just good condom etiquette. You could read my book, Sarah.
Condom etiquette by Tom the Serial Killer.
Who knows better than a serial killer in prison than the ins and outs of the vagaries of the condom business, Sarah?
Are you going out for a night on the town? Wear your sleek black condom number. It's the executioner's outfit.
Right. Going to murder someone who has been sinning against God. Try a slimming blue condom.
Have you ever seen a condom? Have you ever seen a condom in the dark? Kind of looks black.
Have you ever danced with a condom in the pale moonlight, Sarah?
That's what I'm going to call sex from now on, Bo. Dancing with a condom in the pale moonlight. Oh man, but this scene is just, it's pointless. It's purely there to remind you that you probably have a theory on this, and we are slowly escalating it. Weird that we can find a body, bury a body in 24 hours, yet we can't get like a paternity test result, which feels like it should be quicker. And in that time period, it's been a couple of days since this was handed over, or a couple of episodes, but we're essentially just reminding you this is a thing that we're going to be dealing with, but don't expect any answers anytime soon.
All right, but speaking of something that will pay off, we go from that to Allison back at the interview. They're still on their little break. Allison is like sweating bullets and shit. And I thought she had been poisoned. I was like, yeah, I was like, the executioner has killed her with poison, and she is about to drop dead on screen. The way that she's sweating and just like,
she's having like a pang of moral consciousness, like where this is like she's sitting there going, are we doing the right thing here? Like a morality issue? No, these are things that Slasher will not give us, Bo, because it's doubling down.
Right. So Allison gets real pissy with the makeup girl. The best thing that happens in this scene is like Lisa Ann being like, Dylan, you're a natural, you keep it up. Allison, you're a buckaroo. You just do your best, huh? Try to keep up, I guess. And Allison is like, as she's being given makeup, she's just like, try to get rid of some of this moisture. It's your job. And you're like, oh, Allison, you're the living worst. So Sarah and Robin, who are continuing to drink and just pitch possible serial killers.
Which is all they do, to be honest with you, Bo. That is, like, I think if you lived in Scotland or I lived in Tennessee, I think this is how we would spend one evening a weekend. You're like, every weekend we would just, like, me and you would convene at some bar somewhere, and we would just have cold case files in front of us, and we would just try and solve it through bourbon.
So they are, you're right.
Bo Ransdell and Duncan McLeish, sponsored by Maker's Mark, DBCC Cold Cases.
Right, the same level of detective that you get out of under the Silver Lake of just
is literally because they're like, it could be this guy, and I'm like looking at it like, what's your evidence here? Well, remember how he looked at this point? He wasn't there at that bit, and I'm like, well, this is why you're not a police officer, and you should stop giving shit to the main guy and Cam and all the rest, and that they have actual evidence.
Right, you just randomly pick someone to accuse until proven different. That is
Do they have Guess Who in the States, the board game? The thing where you like, well, that's literally what they're doing. Yeah. It's like the worst game of Clue ever. It's just like...
Yeah, they call it Cluedo. That's how shitty a game of Clue it is.
It's like, it's Father Harrington with the kill kit in the library. Literally, this is the level that we're dealing with here.
And speaking of, so here is exactly how all that shakes out. So they're like, Reverend Herring is our guy. Mm-hmm. And Sarah's like, are you sure? and Robin is like, well, prove me wrong.
Which is not what you do.
Yeah, and so she's like,
it's the other way around. You get evidence first that leads you in the direction of something, and then you use that evidence to prove your theory. You don't work backwards. You don't randomly pick someone. That's bad.
And so Sarah says, you're full of shite. They went through his house. There's no way he could be the killer. And he's like, aha, they went through one of his houses, but what about his other house? She's like, what are you talking about then? And then they go to the church. And as soon as they get there...
the house of God. It was quite clever how they did that.
Yeah, but as soon as they get there, immediately Robin goes from, we need to be searching this place, to, we're probably not going to find anything.
Yeah, I'm like, you're fucking useless.
Right, and so Sarah snoops around, finds in like a wardrobe in the office this black bag. Mm-hmm. And inside the black bag is a rope and a hammer and nails.
Big old nails.
Yeah, big iron
Biblically
spike nails.
large
Yeah.
size nails. Like nails that you don't buy now. Like
Right.
you can't go to a hardware store and say, I'll have the Jesus cross nails, please. You know, the
Yes.
ones that I'll have the stigmata nail, please. Like, you just don't fucking get that. But they're here.
Stigmata brand nails. Um,
For when you want something to stick.
right.
Like, you know.
Like the only thing you use these nails for is
Putting up a person.
crucifixions and hammering edicts to things. You know? Like if you were gonna like Martin Luther used this for the 95 Theses or whatever.
I love the back. I love the idea that on the back, the two examples he gave you is one someone being crucified, and another one an old-fashioned Tim crier putting up a fucking sign.
Yeah. But as soon as they open this bag, Sarah's like, "That's it. He's the killer."
Yeah, it's just, she refers to this later on as a kill kit, which
Yeah.
one, you wonder how she knows what a kill kit looks like, and two, how she got to the conclusion that a hammer, a rope, and some nails equals kill kit.
Right. Look, it's biblical. This is easily gonna be the murder kit of the next victim.
So fucking dumb.
So, cut to the next morning. Cam is sleeping in. And Sarah texts him and is like, "Hey, Cam, is it all right if I come over? I know you're dealing with the death of your wife and all, but how about I come
funeral
over?"
was yesterday.
Right.
Same day we found the body.
And Cam is just like, he looks like he's been drinking and he's not taking any of this real well. And then he looks at his phone, and then immediately like there's a knock on the door, and she's like, "It's me, I'm outside." Like, it's the most asshole move of like texting someone that
But it's not the most asshole move. The most asshole move is about to happen over coffee.
Yeah, so right. Cam is just like, "Yeah, I guess you can come in. Have a seat. I'll make you some coffee," which just goes to show this show really is Canadian.
You
And
want
then
some coffee?
right. And she's like, "Boy, this is a real fine cup of coffee you made here, Cam. Say, do you think your father could?"
This is the tact of this show. I would love to like say that we're doing it for comedic effect, but we really are not. The coffee has just been poured. He has just sat down, and she literally says to him, "Hey, have you maybe thought that your dad's the killer?"
Yeah. And
I was like, "Oh my fucking god, no!"
right,
No.
I know your dad knows Tom Winston. Do you think it's possible that he's orchestrating the killings from inside his jail cell? Maybe with the help of your reverend. And Cam is like, "The fuck? What?
But I love
Maybe you're the
we get-
killer. How about
we
that,
get-
Sarah?"
We get serial killer top trumps here. It's
Yeah.
like accusation doctors is like, well, maybe it's you, or maybe it's your husband. Like, maybe it's Dylan. And I'm like, oh, we're just like throwing everything now. And the two of them like, we were like,
She gives a like, "There's no way it's him." And he's like, "Oh, really? Really? Your husband couldn't be the killer? Where's he been on the nights that people have been murdered?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know, but let's get back to your father."
your father, the priest.
And she says, "I am convinced that your father is hiding something." And Cam is like, "Yeah, so's your husband. How about you get the fuck out of my house and leave the coffee?"
Yeah.
And so she takes off.
That's how you know you've offended a Canadian, when they tell you to leave with unfinished coffee.
"Hey, how about you get out of here and you leave the coffee and the Tim Hortons, all right? Nobody,
We love you, Canada.
put down the double and you get the hell out of here. How about that, eh? Sick and tired of you stepping all over my good manners and welcoming nature." Anyway, so Dylan then shows up at the newspaper office with coffee for everybody, speaking of.
Yeah, he's cock of the walk. He's like, "Listen, I'm Mr. TV personality. I'm the guy that everyone knows and loves. I am Dylan. And if anyone can, Dylan can."
And as soon as he shows up, Allison is like, yeah, thanks for showing up, I guess. I mean, we've all been here at work for a little while. I guess the star of the show just shows up whenever he wants. And he's like, yeah, look, sorry about that. I didn't mean to upstage or anything. Hey, maybe I took some acting lessons. I could give you some acting lessons, too.
Yeah, I could give you some pointers, which she does not take well.
Right.
Which, to be honest, it's like, because she says it herself, she's like, I know I bombed. And it's like, yeah, I can give you some pointers there. And I'm like, wrong time to do that with your boss.
Right. Hey, yeah, how about you don't be a dick about this?
Yeah.
And we just learned, and I don't even know if Dylan's clear that this is his boss, but we just learned the last episode.
To be fair, we only found out the last episode, so maybe he isn't quite sure what the hierarchy at work is yet.
And she's like, shut up, I'm hacking into June's text.
Well, this is the thing, right? So like she's like, I've been busy here working on leads, and he's like, do you have something? And she's like, well, I can't. He's like, do you? I'm your editor in chief. Do you have something? And she shows him her trying to hack into June's phone records. And Dylan all of a sudden's like, listen, this is unethical. Not only is it unethical, it's illegal. If we do this, we shouldn't do this. And she's like, but think of all the juicy texts that we'll get between, forbidden lovers and all the rest. And imagine what what's her face?
Lisa Ann Fellows.
Lisa Ann Fellows, imagine what she'll be like if she has it on the front page and all the rest. And you can see that this moral quandary, this ethical dilemma is played over for as much time as it takes to cremate a body and bury it in the TV show Slasher, because next thing we know, Bo, we are going to be getting it on the fucking... How does time work in this show? Next thing we know, it's already in print.
Yeah, it's already in print. It's being reported on. The next time you hear anything about this, it's already on the front page of the paper.
So she's hacked it. She got the pin code to hack it.
They wrote the story.
She must have read the entire chat thread, picked out the bits that she need, constructed a story around it, and published it in less than 24 hours.
That's all 100% accurate.
This is how good they are, Bo. This is how good they are.
And so while that's happening for Dylan, Sarah's at work at her gallery, and Reverend Herring pops by.
Yeah, well, this is the gallery where everyone that comes in to buy, like a painting or look at the paintings will threaten Sarah. Like anyone that comes in, like that old couple that are left in there right at the end of this scene, I imagine walk over and start maliciously interrogating her and using horrible sexual rape innuendo directly to her face, because that is how every customer in this shop has behaved to poor little Sarah. To be sure.
I love the fact that the Reverend starts off kind of like passive aggressive friendly with her.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let me tell you a story, Sarah. A woman goes into a priest for confession, and she says, I've been spreading false rumors about my friends. And the priest tells her to take some chicken feathers and take them to all these corners of the town. And then she comes back, and the priest says, good, you scattered all those feathers around. Now go get them. I want you to go get them back. And she says, but Reverend, I can't, because the wind has scattered them. Just like your words, Sarah. Like he turns on a dime and gets in her face about it. It's wonderful.
He's slowly working up there. Like even his last scene in this episode here is slowly working the Reverend into my heart.
Yeah,
because he could take up the mantle after what looks like is going to happen in the next episode as my favorite character.
Chief Brimley is still the character that I'm
yeah, but I like, if you know what I mean, what I'm saying, I don't think Chief Brimley is long for this world, Bo, where I think the priest will be beyond this, and he's the one that they're going to have to like kind of really race. We've had the grandmother who passed the baton off to Chief Brimley, who's, I think, going to have to pass the baton off to the father, who is kind of all sorts of awesome right now.
Yes.
You're right. He's like right in our face with it as well. And then there's this old couple come in, and he's just like, you think about it.
Well, yeah, on his way out, what he says is, your parents were naive, Sarah, and they thought they were invincible. You shouldn't make the same mistake.
Oh, Bo, harsh.
Yeah. And so later, Sarah's just walking the streets by herself during all this.
Wallowing in contemplation, Bo.
Right. And as we mentioned, she looks down and there is the newspaper that's like, hey, guess what? There are all these texts that June sent to Trent, who both of these people are now dead. But here's these salacious texts they sent back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And cut to the newspaper where Lisa Ann Fellows is there reading these texts.
She is practically orgasmic reading these.
Oh, she is having such a good time. Like, she's giggling with them and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they look, oh, they sound like high school kids in love.
Yeah.
And she's touching Dylan's arm and,
Yeah.
being a little affectionate with him. And to his slight credit here, Dylan actually stands up because at a certain point, Lisa Ann Fellows is like, Dylan, we need to take you to New York and have you on the show and stuff. And he's like, no, Allison needs to be there too. She's,
I know, right, yeah, right, yeah.
she's my partner in all this. And Lisa Ann Fellows is like, well,
Ooh.
I mean, I guess maybe.
Yeah,
And
I
she's
mean,
like, I'll tell you what, we'll talk about it tonight. We got a lot to talk about. And
she could be on the radio show. How about that?
I'll tell you what, we'll have a meeting and then we'll text her after and let her know how it all went.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lisa Ann Fellows takes off and passes Sarah on the way in. And she's just like, oh, I read the newspaper. Did you ever consider Cam's feelings for 1 second, you filthy Canadians?
And I love the fact that he turns this as like, listen, I just report that news. You know I just report the news. I made this personal.
Yeah.
It's in the public sphere. I report the news.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it the news though? Is it the news though?
You know how things move fast. I mean, I've still got to be here for 2 weeks or
Yeah.
maybe 3 days or maybe 10 days. Who knows?
Yeah, but what year is it? It's like literally like he's handed, because we've never at any point heard that his notice has been retracted. What's her plans in this time now? She seems to be still working at the guy. I don't know. And the show doesn't care.
Yeah, as soon as Brenda died, it was like, we're not even bothering with.
Yeah, we're not moving now. My grandmother died.
Why is Sarah not in the midst of like, I'm dealing with my mom's house and what we're like, why doesn't she go live there for a little while?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, again, we should not try to apply logic to this show. It will make us fools in trying to do that. But
It's so
yes,
difficult though, Bo. So my brain just wants it to fit nicely.
you just wish whoever had been writing this show had thought like, hey, I wonder how Sarah would be behaving and what actually happens after someone that you love dies. And not just like the friends and the people in town, but her grandmother.
Anyone really close to her.
Direct family members.
We're gonna get so much better from her later on, where she goes on a tear.
So anyway, night falls on Waterbury, Duncan.
Again.
Right. And so Cam is watching and drinking hard while Lisa Ann Fellows is interviewing Allison and Dylan again.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut, it's kind of this montage of seeing this interview while we see Chief Brimley watching it. The mayor and Sarah are both watching this interview separately. Mm-hmm. And as they're having this conversation, the Lisa Ann Fellows says, if only we could ask the executioner what his motives were. And then Allison is like, hey, I've got an idea. She says, well, how about we ask him? And they're like, what? What the fuck?
Yeah, like, this is the bit that you're adding to the conversation, Miss Blank Stare.
Yeah. And she says, no, I'm serious. Like, if the executioner wants to tell us what is really going on, contact me directly, me, Allison, owner and or reporter at the paper, and you can get in touch with me and I'll have a one-on-one interview with you. And they take a break, and Dylan is like, are you fucking crazy? What is going on? And even Lisa Ann Fellows is like, that's a bold move.
Ballsy.
Yeah.
ballsy. And I love how she's just like that. You're just like to write to Dylan as well. So you're just upset because you didn't think about it first. And I'm like, oh, we've got a good old fashioned power play, Bo.
We do indeed. And to capitalize on this, Allison just walks home alone at night.
Well, this is the bit that fucking blew my mind because they're literally like, you know, he is still out there killing people. So she just decides to walk alone at night to her car.
Right. It's like going to the zoo with like pork chops attached to you. I want to go in the gorilla cage.
Also, like she's clearly in a studio recording this, yet she's walking down a residential street to her car.
Right. She parked 4 blocks away.
Oh, it's just like this stuff irritates the fuck out of me.
I know. It's nonsense. But she's walking alone because she has this death wish, and this voice is just like, Allison, hey,
whispering to her.
It's the executioner. Allison,
I've left you a note on the front of your car. Don't throw it away like it's a ticket. It's a note from the executioner. Remember, you mentioned me in your interview. This is a long sentence for Duncan to be doing to get over his point over how ridiculous this whisper is coming from a bush while you walk towards your car, which was apparently quite far away from where the studio is. But I'm just saying, don't bend the paper. Promise me you read the... you're still walking away from me. Promise me. Promise me.
Yeah, and so she gets to her car, and then it's like, oh my God, there's an envelope on the window.
She gets in the car, closes the door. She could drive away because the envelope's there because a voice has been chasing her. But no, she gets back out the car, takes the envelope off, and then doesn't rush back in the car to read it, locking the doors to be safe, Bo. No. She reads it on the street.
Yeah, and the whole note is, Old Foundry, 11 a.m. tomorrow. Love the executioner. And like Jeff is scratched out. It's like
Cam's written there.
Cam, yeah.
He wrote Cam in one sort of thing, and then he's put era required, camera required. Hopefully she doesn't piece that together.
All of it's written out.
The Cam's in those letters that you get from like magazines, like ransom notes, and then the rest is handwritten because he ran out of letters.
Just a quick note from chat. Andrew saying she walked home alone at night. What is she, a vampire?
Yeah.
Love it. Iranian vampire humor. And then we get to the best scene of the episode, which is Sarah showing up to ask Chief Brimley for copies of all the tapes that she turned over as evidence.
Yeah, all the tapes of her mum being drilled by everyone that lived locally. She wants it. And Chief Brimley, guess what he's going to say, Bo? He's going to say no, because they are evidence. And as we explained in a previous episode, when something is handed to the police and they deem it as being evidence, it's not yours anymore.
Yeah. And she's like, I gave that to you in good faith. I expected any time I could come want to see my mom fucking strangers. You weren't going to stand in my way, you son of a bitch. And he's like,
Brimley is so good here. So good.
Listen, goddammit, you are not Nancy Drew. And she says, well, you're not the boss of this town. And then he's like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get real with you for a second, goddammit. Here's what you are. You are some lady who came back to town because you failed at being an artist, opened up some gallery don't nobody want to go to. You're kind of a piece of shit, Sarah.
You can't sell other people's art.
Yeah.
Fucking bro.
He does. He gets, like, it is Toni Collette Hereditary level of, like, sitting there with that stupid face on your face.
Yeah.
Like, it is raw.
Don't you ever fucking swear at me. I'm your sheriff.
Oh, man. Every scene in every movie should be that dinner scene.
It is so good. I watched it last night and it's just fucking incredible. But yeah, like he goes full scale raw. And what I love about the sheriff is he knows when he's won. He knows, like, right, I might not have solved this case, but I told you a new one, because he always gets that kind of wry smile of, what? No comeback for the sheriff's coming. Like,
Yeah.
what we're going to say, Sarah? Oh, you're going to cry. You're going to cry right now.
You gonna cry, little baby? You hey, I bet you want a tissue, goddammit? Well,
He grabs her hands and starts going, "Quit hitting yourself! Quit hitting yourself!" It's like,
Sarah, look, I don't mean to interrupt, but I got a little bit of a medical exam I want to give you. It turns out you might have brain cancer if your hand is bigger than your face. So just put your hand up there and swat. Oh, you fell for it. God damn it, Sarah, you were stupid and a failure.
when he finishes this conversation, he gives her antiseptic to deal with the burn wounds he's just given her.
Yeah. Hey, I got a pad right here. I want you to take this down to the Rexall. Get yourself some burn ointment, goddammit, because you got yourself a Chief Brimley burn, and that takes a while to heal.
So good.
It's
so
wonderful.
good.
So then we cut to Allison, who was having her interview with like she sets up in the old foundry with like a camera and a couple of chairs, and all she's got on her is a taser in her purse.
Yeah, which is going to stop the executioner if you want, to bring biblical judgment to her.
Right.
But she's innocent, Bo. She's not done anything like hack into messages.
Dude, it turns out that she has done so much worse than that.
God, yeah. When we get the reveal on this one, I'm like, how do you live with yourself? Like, why was even like the talk of a moral quandary of hacking? But then I suppose it's trying to insinuate when she does that, she's just comfortable doing this sort of shit, because that's where her brain went to straight away. It wasn't like exhaust all the solutions and then hack June's messaging. And this is something that she'd done before. We just didn't know it at the time. But the executioner comes in, and oh my God.
Yeah, well, at first, she's like, how do I know it's you? And he's like, well,
he's voiced by Bane for a start. He's Tom Hardy in like the Bat Rises again or whatever it is.
The Dark Knight Rises, or
yeah. Oh, I swear to God, that's what his voice sounded like. He's
Allison. You'll find that the paralytic is called karate.
The thing is, he's rocking a very ye oldie timed accent through this. Like his word use and all the rest. It's not how someone young would speak. You know what I mean? Which I suppose is the point. But also it's the clear obvious we're trying to throw you, the viewer, off the scent. But he is like kind of, like, if you track this, you will find that no one knows I have used this compound.
Yeah,
like, what are we fucking doing?
Wait, she's like, you're a murderer, and he's like, no, I am a reaction to sin, not sin itself. And then she says, like you said, she's like, no, I've never done anything wrong. He's like, are you sure? Yeah. You've never done anything with your newspaper. Facts, and only the facts, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Allison. That's what you do.
I'm sorry.
I'm a little obsessed with Sarah. You'll have to forgive me.
Yes.
Then I will give you permission to report.
Yeah, every now and again, Cam will the executioner will make a mistake. I did not say Cam. Who is this Cam? He sounds delightfully handsome and rugged.
Is he a football player, Allison? Rugged, handsome, fine Canadian beef. So
he sometimes wears leather too, but not today.
Is there something you would like to confess, Allison? Anything before we leave this interview?
And Allison's like, I'm squeaky clean, ain't no flies on this shit, bitch.
Yeah, right. She has a moment where she's like, well, no, I'm good. I did the personal inventory, and no, I feel like I've made peace with everything.
Yeah, my moral compass always points true north, Bo.
Right, so off the executioner fucks.
Yes, because for no reason at all, really, this scene is taking place, except for later on where we find out that maybe Allison told a fib or two.
Oh, yes. So he looks, Lisa Ann Fellows checks the footage with Allison and Dylan.
And she couldn't be any more moist, Bo.
Well, because it's him describing like, oh, you want to know how I killed Vera McBride? Well, I took off all her limbs. And
Yeah.
Lisa Ann Fellows is like, oh, I want to build this special around all this footage. Listen, Allison, we're going to put you on a plane tomorrow. And Dylan's like, should we go to the police? And they're like, yeah, whatever. They can watch this on TV.
But Dylan's also like, I need to come along. And she's like, we'll maybe phone you in from here.
Yeah. I mean, need is a strong word. How about we call you? Yeah, it's a real, like, he is immediately replaced.
He's yesterday's news.
Yeah.
Ironically, see what I did?
Yeah. And so then we have the Adult Swim scene. Sarah goes to the mayor, where she shows up and he's like, oh, Sarah, hey, we haven't had any scenes together. It's good to finally meet you on this show. And she's like, yeah, good to meet you too. Listen, I got a favor to ask.
Yeah, I've never asked you for anything, but let me now ask you.
Yeah. And she asked for, listen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to lean on the chief of the police, and he's going to give me copies, all them tapes of me motherfucking all them men.
You cannot say in an Irish accent, here's what's going to happen without the follow-up words being, you're going to be taken.
Here's what's going to happen, Mayor. You're about to be taken. And he's immediately like, I can't do that. That's it's unethical.
Who are you? Me? I'm not doing that. And she's like, oh, really?
And then she's like, listen, I happen to know for a fact you and my grandma used to bump Buckley's.
For a fact, she's got no evidence out with her drunk grandmother said that they did.
Right, other than Brenda was just like, the man, yeah, I fucked him. That's all that's admissible in court. And on her way out, she's like, I'm going to get to those tapes. Aren't I, Grandpa?
I know. What a fucking, honestly. Remember when she hinted at it?
Yeah.
Like 3 episodes ago or something, and now she's just calling him it.
Yeah, right. And so he's just like, what?
What?
And she leaves. And so cut to yet another bar, because we only have like 3 sets in this show. Mm-hmm. And one of them is this bar where instead of Robin and Sarah drinking, now it's Allison and Dylan and Lisa Ann. And, well, initially it's just Dylan and Allison, and then Lisa
Allison's
Ann.
like, she's like, you can have whatever you want. This is on me, except the champagne. We're not having the champagne, but you can. These drinks are on me because I'm a star. And Dylan's reluctantly like, oh yeah, whatever. And then Lisa Ann just comes in here, and she is all about what we're going to do. But she has some sage advice because Allison is a bit concerned. She wants to take things to the next. Interestingly enough, she's having the conversation with Lisa Ann that Lisa Ann had specifically with Dylan. About, listen, this is finite, this story is going to move on, you need to be positioning yourself. And Allison just basically asks, how do I take this to the next level? Listen, there's ain't many sins left. And then what happens? And, Lisa's going to give her some sage words of advice.
She says, become Wrath, detective.
What's in the bag?
Allison, I wanted to see if I could be a reporter, Allison.
Dylan's in the corner going, Lisa Ann's got the upper hand.
Yeah, Dylan. Yeah. Lisa Ann Fellows has the upper hand. Drop the gun, Allison.
She basically tells her she's too clean. She's like that.
Yeah.
You don't have that killer instinct to survive. You're too squeaky clean. And what I thought we were going to get was a confession of this, that story that we got about Jim.
Right, the hacking that you just saw. Yeah.
Like, because she's been squeaky clean up top. She had to cross that moral line for that purpose. She was pushed to do it, Bo. Turns out, no. Turns out, like you say, it's infinitely fucking worse.
Yeah.
Like, of all the crimes that have happened in this show, this is the worst one.
By a million miles. Like, this
And the
is
payment that we get is the slightest. Like, she did not suffer. Like, nearly enough compared to the guy who drove the ambulance past the drunk girl who was bitten alive by fucking snakes.
Right.
Like, oh.
And so what Allison confesses here is that way back at we've talked about this a number of times in the course of the show, is there was a girl named Ariel Peterson who was kidnapped that you were referencing, like the EMT driver Trent in June come by and she was like, I'm fine.
Only occurred to me in the interim. Like, we were talking about how Trent like fell into that hole, and yeah, it looked like he broke his leg, but he essentially became rendered useless. You remember what Trent worked as? He was a paramedic.
Yeah.
So how didn't he just set his leg? Like, all the medical training, Bo. It's just another thing that Slasher doesn't want you to get hung up on. That when I thought about that, I was like, oh no, fuck you, Slasher.
But it was more like, fuck you.
It was a bit like that, actually. But yeah, so like she's like, listen. Let me bear. I've had a few G's and T's, right? And let me bear the worst fucking thing. The worst thing I have ever done. Nay, the worst thing that this town has ever happened since the murders by the executioner first time round. Let me ump the ante in confessions here. And yeah, Ariel went missing. Because we have been conditioned to believe, because Trent and maybe June drove past and left her in a drunken state, and a car picked her up, and we don't know what happened to her. Right?
That's right.
That was as far as we knew the story.
Yeah.
How did Allison get involved? Tell the listeners out there what a piece of shit this woman is.
So she was worried because the town was starting to lose interest in the story of this kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
And so she starts to gin up. She composes an email, essentially, that is like, "Hey, I have evidence that Benny Peterson, the father and husband of Heather, was the one who did this. Crazy Heather was the one who did this, and basically the town and Chief Brimley built this case." That was all based around circumstantial evidence.
I love them in the flashback finding the paper, which is one of those like kind of news things that you put your money in to get them out on the street, the newspaper dispensers things, which just so happened to be on a residential street, because everything is on a residential street in fucking Slasher. It is so stupid. It's like they walk out the front door and they happen to have that new dispenser right in the front of what?
The camera has to duck people being like, "Hey, you want to come to the barbecue later?" No. Oh, you're filming a whole scary show. Sorry.
So fucking like it's so tawdry. But yeah, so essentially, like the attention of the town is now focused on the dad. But you know what? Heather doesn't believe it. She sticks with her husband all the way through. It's just her husband under mountain pressure, maybe takes matters into his own hand, fucking hangs himself. This is why Crazy Heather is Crazy Heather, by the way.
Right.
I'm now more sympathetic with that character than I've ever fucking been.
Well,
you too, after all this shit, would be barking crazy shit in the middle of the town and spitting in envelopes and galleries.
Right. Her daughter goes missing, and
her business folds.
Right. Her husband, who Allison says was abusive, and that's what makes all of this okay, is that he wasn't a great guy to begin with.
Yep.
That her abusive husband then hangs himself under the shame and scrutiny of a murder investigation, leaving her completely alone in this world. And as she confesses this, Lisa Ann Fellows is like, "All right, I'm pretty impressed. Guess you got the stuff."
Like she's not horrified by it at all. It's like, yep, that's entry level 1 to being a big time journalist.
Welcome to Journalism 101.
And then she basically says to her, well, the question is, would you do it again? You had to do it all over again. Would you do it again? And she's just like that. You know, it kept my paper around for another year and it paid salaries. And then she's like, buy this woman a drink. Now she's already got a fucking full glass. She's like, get this woman a drink. And then the camera pans up in that ominous I'm about to give you another red herring show. Flags up, and Dylan is looking not impressed from the rafters, Bo. Did he overhear it? Maybe.
Maybe.
Mhm.
So, speaking of maybe,
Yeah, let's follow the father.
yeah, the Father, the Son, and the sexy ghost. So, Sarah and Robin, she is painting Robin. Like, after,
She is
Here's-
drawing him horribly, by the way.
here is exactly what happened. Chief Brimley was like, "You suck as an artist, goddammit." And she was like, "I'll show him. I'll paint this fella." And so she gets Robin to sit for a portrait, and he's just like, "This is taking forever, and you're
My
not
nose
very
is
good."
itchy. How long does it take? And this, by the way, is not how you paint someone. Like, once you've got their profile, you can do the rest. You
Right.
work off your own artistic imagination to where the light is and all the rest. But no, she will not let him move, and eventually has to scratch his nose. Although I will argue he's being very dramatic about scratching his nose. Says he's got fucking crabs and a forest fire or something up his nostril. And he starts clawing at it, and then as he stands up, he sees the father putting said kill kit in the back of his car to drive off, and they're like, the game is the game is afoot, Sarah.
Yeah, yeah,
Indubitably.
right, yeah. And so they take off after him because they're neighborhood sleuths.
Yeah.
And they follow in Robin's car all the way to like some building out in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of a residential street because it's
Right.
slasher.
Yet another residential street. And they follow him inside, and they hear screaming, and they rush upstairs to in theory catch him in the act of murder.
Because they hear screams. This
Yeah.
woman's like, "Oh no, I can't do it again. I can't do it. I won't do it again." And then they bust open the door, and it's like a scene from fucking Hellraiser 3.
Right, except more fun.
Well, yeah, there's a cross there. They're only bathed in a red neon light.
Right, it's like Nicholas Winding Refn slasher for a second, where it's all this red light in the background, and it's like a dominatrix
Yep.
pounding nails into his
Actually-
hands.
Making him like Jesus on the cross.
Yeah, which is fine, but if there is any indication that this has happened more than one time ever,
Every
then
time he
I call-
lifts his hands, it's like the dude from fucking Indiana Jones.
yeah, right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Da, da, da,
yeah.
da, da,
Oh
da,
yeah,
da.
he's only got one side of the nail.
Yeah, like, it's so fucking stupid. It's so unrepentantly stupid. But they're like, and he's like, and
Right.
then we're not going to see them for the rest of the episode.
Instead,
We're not even going to deal with it, actually, because we're going to go it the next day and we're still not going to be dealing with what was just seen.
no, that's an episode 6 thing. So
Yeah.
Allison is about to get on her plane to New York.
Yep, she's got her bag packed. The limo's a bit early. Shock.
Oh God, speaking of stupid characters, so this limo pulls up. The driver doesn't get out. She's like, "Hey, will you open the trunk? What about my bags?"
Yeah.
Wordlessly, the trunk opens.
He's like, "Oh, I can't open the boots."
I'm sorry, you'll have to get your own bags.
She's like, weird. He sounds kind of familiar. I'll just do this. My shitty lip. I'm giving them a thumb down on TripAdvisor or whatever app we're using for this. But she sits in the back and she's like, and the car drives off.
Yeah,
The limo drives off.
yeah.
And like, was her mobile phone in the boot or something? Because you would imagine she's got her mobile phone in her bow.
You would think, but she sees, like, surprise, surprise, the executioner turns around. It was me all along that was the driver. Bet you weren't expecting that when I never got out. And she's like, oh my goodness.
Sit comfortably in the limo. I was born in the limo, molded by it.
And so she wakes up at the old foundry again, all tied up to a chair.
Yeah, because he has punched her right in the fucking face. Her nose is bloody.
Yeah. And finally, and she confesses, but again, you confess to a serial killer tied to a chair. It is way too late to be confessing shit.
Yeah, it's too late. At this point, he's not going to let you go. And she's like, I repent. And he lets her repent by Like I say, the maybe most humane kill we've had on this show yet for the most dastardly deed.
Yeah.
Her throat is slit. It's
It-
quite death blow.
So they, sorry, Alan in chat said, as a Canadian, Father Herring is related to Wolverine. It kind of made me laugh. Anyway, but yeah, so the executioner just cuts her throat, slices her throat open. She bleeds out and done. I mean, she's screaming when it happens, but again, that's way
She's
way
also
better.
screaming. She's screaming after her throat slit, which is not how that works.
Sure, but at least that is a better way to go than being eaten alive by bugs and animals and
By
shit.
any other
Yeah.
fucking measurable thing in here, all the nasty stuff that happens to her post-mortem. Everyone else is like fucking Mrs. Cantankerous old boot across the road had her hands and legs, her feet chopped off while she was still alive.
Yeah. So, all right. Speaking of,
Yep.
so very quick note, unless you have any details about this, is there's a quick bit where we see an officer show up, deliver DVDs of all the sex tapes to Sarah.
Cracks a joke that now he's a delivery guy.
Yeah. And this is what we mentioned earlier, where it turns out Tom Winston is in one of the videos. That's the big revelation here. You know, oh,
In
Toy,
answer to that,
there's
in
the
answer to that-
killer railing my mom there on screen with everyone else.
Yep. In answer to the comment just being posted in our chat, there is no way a chauffeur's cap is fitting over that reservoir tip.
That's right.
Kind of flop-sided to the top, can't get on.
Also, because of the hole I poked, I'll shoot it right off. It's like putting a hat on one of the fountains at the Bellagio.
Is this what constitutes double bagging it?
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, it must be. He's
Yeah.
detected it.
All right, so then we cut to some hipsters eating at a fast food place.
And I'm like, are these new characters we need to? No. Slasher's like, no, these are
don't worry.
disposable characters. This is the worst setup for let this character eat this calamari, which is not a calamari, Bo. It's actually
It's an ear. It's an ear.
Oh no.
And hey,
How?
I did that way back in Blue Velvet days.
Wait, let me answer this point, because the next revelation is the police are there and they're checking through all the deep fryers. I understand someone smuggling an ear, right, into a batch of
Yeah.
onion rings. They pull up a tray and it's fucking Allison's fillet.
Yeah, no, it's not even in like the basket. It's like under it or something. Uncooked, by the way. And also old oil. As someone who worked a couple of fast food jobs when I was in college.
That's not clean oil. That is not clean oil.
That looked dark. I mean,
man.
I got a lot of questions about the health.
The hygiene
situation.
just in general of this place, but they pull the head out and they're like, oh,
Yeah,
that is so
it's just,
like Chief Bradley had a fucking shitty day and all he wants to do is get home, but Dylan's going to be all over him like white on rice. And he gets out this fucking door and Dylan is far too giddy that Allison might be the potential, victim here.
Right, it's a whole like, hey, could you confirm that it's Allison inside the building? He's just like, listen, goddamn it, I just got here. I'm trying to make sense of everything. Why you gotta be so goddamn nosy?
But he does say the line, that I thought you worked with her, and he's like, that is that you admitting that the victim in there is actually that of Allison? And then we get this thing that I've never understood in TV and movies, and they all do it, and I fucking hate it. Like conversations that take place clearly after a vehicle is left.
Yeah,
He's shouting, but he continues to shout after the vehicle is gone. And I'm like, that no one hears that. Is that just because you don't like to leave things unfinished or whatever? But he's like, you either you get involved with me and we can do this story together, or report him my own way.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Chief Brimley's like 3 miles away.
He's home already. And he has the most charming wife ever who's out in the garden singing songs. And she's like, Brimley, do you want me to make you a sandwich?
Yeah, and it's like, do you want pastrami or salami? I'm like, man,
Yeah.
pastrami sandwich. That's
I was like, my mouth watered
I
as soon
know.
as she said
Oh,
it.
man.
And Brimley was like, oh, go.
What I wouldn't give for a pastrami on Swiss right now, Duncan. Grilled, maybe a little kraut.
Dear God.
Anyway, so He gets home. He goes to his den down in the man cave.
Which I love this man cave. This man cave has, wait for it, a safe for his guns and all that, which makes sense.
Sure.
Then it has a fridge on the other side of the room. I was like, well, to me, just knowing how I would like a room, I'd have the two things beside each other, but I walk to the other end of the room to get my beer. He takes the cap off, and then the most human thing that has happened in this show, it just leaves it hanging around because that's what people do. They don't put it straight away.
He puts it on top of a shelf, and I think there were a couple more under up there. I was like, that's
his beer cap shelf.
Yeah.
So he leaves it there, and then he goes over to what at first I thought was a wallet, and then he starts unlocking a lot of things, and I was like, this is kind of strange. What's going on here? And then he walks into a locked room in his house, like a basement subcompartment.
Into the movie The Room.
Yes, which is literally the movie The Room. And Bo, we get our final revelation of this episode about Chief Brimley.
Yeah.
Tell our dear listeners the slab of well-placed, well-articulated, well-crafted storytelling that this is.
So he walks in because, and there's a girl singing to a little boy. Clearly, well, not clearly, this appears to be the child's mother.
Yes.
Also, it happens, is Ariel, the girl who went missing years ago that got it was blamed on Benny Peterson, who murdered himself and made Heather go crazy. Chief Brimley the whole time is like, guess what, goddammit? Secret weirdo. That's me. And
so he's kidnapped her, but not only has he kidnapped her, he has fathered the child as well.
Does he say that? Or is that just the implication?
The kid says father, and he kind of looks lovingly at her. So either he has, either there's a backstory here in that area was being abused by her dad, and he saved her, ? Don't think that's the case, but the kid refers to him as dad.
Yeah.
And he sits with his beer, looking lovingly as his abducted child bride sits singing to her shared child.
Yeah.
It's all fucking weird.
It's a twist, Duncan.
And then the show finishes, and I actually finished this episode this morning. I was sitting at my dining room table, and my wife was sitting at the other side of the table, and my child was at the end of the room, and the words, "Oh, fuck off," came out my mouth. I was like, come on.
Alan, all right, Alan has asked for my VC Andrews loving face. When this happened, it was this. So there you go. It was confusion, a little bit of anger. It's just this series continues to be like it has twists for the sake of twists.
It's a soap opera. This is what I'm saying. It is literally a soap opera. You should have the climactic music, all the cameras look shocked at the screen, cut to fucking credits. Next week we'll find out who the real dad is. It's pantomime, and I just can't be there. There's so many horrible things in one little town. It doesn't make sense.
Is there, are there 8 episodes this season?
There's still 3 episodes to go.
Okay, so in theory, we have a solid 2-ish hours.
Yep.
Of Slasher left.
Yep.
Or of season 1 of Slasher left. And
we're realistically going to find out that the sheriff was behind all this. Dylan is a horrible fucking... See if they try and redeem the Dylan character, I'm going to be pissed off. Cam could be the potential killer. The father loves fucking nail bondage.
I don't think he's the killer. I don't think it's actually Tom
no, the father
Winston.
is not the killer. I think we're going to find that the serial killer isn't her dad, or maybe is the dad. Who the fuck cares at this point? We need to find out about Dylan's backstory, about why he was messaging the serial killer all along. We've not even touched on that.
It's been 2 episodes since we talked about that last.
Yeah, so that's bound to come back. And then
bound to, Duncan. I mean,
well, I would like to think. And then the chief is going to be discovered as being... Well, the chief is out the next episode. We've set up that, knowing how this show's written, he's going to be abducted by the executioner next time around, which means someone knew about this in order to do it and did nothing on the run-up to this. But I think what we'll find out is the executioner is actually related to this entire case and not against Sarah's case.
Of course.
Which has been the big red herring all along, Bo. It's been playing 3D chess.
Oh, you don't want to say that the show Slasher outsmarted you. That's just a thing that hurts. It hurts your
I think
head
it
and your
outdumbed
heart.
me. I think that's what it is. I think it outdumbed me. I think it's dumber than I thought it was going to be. I think I gave it too much credit.
Look, in 2 weeks' time, these questions and more will be answered, or perhaps not. That's
No.
the beauty of Slasher, is that maybe we'll never know, and that's kind of nice. To feel a little bit like there's a sense of mystery in the world,
Mhm.
I suppose. Look, let's get this out of the way, folks. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you are listening to the audio version of this, and I've been having a blast watching. I know we talk about how dumb this show is, but I'm having so much fun talking about it. It is truly stupid in a way that I really really enjoy, and in between now and the next 2 weeks in which we speak, Duncan, tell people where they can find you and what's going on.
Yep, you can check me out on the podcast Under the Stairs. If you search Podcast Under the Stairs anywhere, you will get the show. The website is tputscast.com. That's tputscast.com. That's where you can get access to every show I do. There is an episode of Opera Omnia up there just now where me and Bo discuss Seven. One of my favorite conversations of this year podcasting was that episode. It's great, so please go and check that out. And on Podcast Under the Stairs, by the time this episode drops, you will have the A24 Part 2 episode where we discuss Ghost Story, It Comes at Night, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Hereditary,
Under the Silver Lake.
And there's one more that I can't remember.
The Monster? Did you say The Monster?
The Monster, yeah, the Brian Bertino movie, The Monster. So yeah, all 6 of those movies reviewed on that episode, myself, Bo, and Jamie. And if it's a patch on the last recording, you are in for a treat. So tputscast.com.
Yes, I think that's going to be super fun. I'm enjoying both of those series, both the A24 and the Opera Omnia. That Opera Omnia series this year with the David Fincher, I would be listening to it anyway, but it is one of my absolute favorite things to do now is to have a conversation about a David Fincher movie at length. It is,
yeah,
and
once a month is just a pure joy. You know what I mean? It feels like we're treating ourselves.
Yeah, it kind of does. And people have pointed out, like, oh, you guys didn't talk about this? It's like, yeah, I know we talked for almost 2 hours, and it's not. We can't cover everything because it's
you physically you could honestly dedicate a whole season of a show just to dissecting the stuff that is actually in the movie Seven.
Yeah,
is that dense and packed. You could do that with all Fincher stuff, and that's the joy of it. Is we won't get to everything, but we will get to the bits that are like immediately needing to be addressed on those shows. So yeah, ton of fun. Everyone should be checking it out.
And so on my end of things, you can check out pick6movies.com. If you're watching this live, a new episode will be dropping on Friday. Featuring Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, which is a notoriously terrible film. And it's worse than you imagine. If you've never seen it, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park is worse than you think it's going to be. So Pick 6 Movies continues that season, by the way, called A Flop is Born, all about musicians trying to make their way into the movie industry.
Oh God.
And boy, the lineup we have, Duncan, is staggering. I want to give it away, but it's it's the stuff that when I bought it, I had to buy a couple of these things on eBay, and there was I got an email that was like, hey, are you want this DVD, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just following up before I send it to you. I want to make sure like we don't get many requests for these. So there's some of that coming. Anyway, so that's Pick 6 Movies. Also, Hero Go Show is back on the regular. The Eye is out now. Looking at that movie. The Eye 2 will be dropping Saturday as well, a week from today. And then legionpodcasts.com. Well, I mean, Duncan and Bo, come correct. You're watching that. But and then legionpodcasts.com. All kinds of crazy stuff. New shows that I'm not on, but there's a Mystery Vault podcast that just dropped an episode about big feats, as has been mentioned, and Loch Ness monsters and whatnot. You can get the skinny on that. Turns out, Duncan, might not be real.
I mean, the tourist trade in Scotland would spit in your face for saying that, Boran. Still, how dare you?
Well, yeah, hey, take it up with RJ. He's the one doing that show.
What I'm saying is, Americans keep coming over and spending all your money.
Yeah, they whooped your head real good. Anyway.
Real good.
And also a couple of things I would point out over there, in addition to all the new shows, and stuff, that you can catch up with and subscribe to, and that kind of thing. And so thank you so much for doing any and all of that. Also, we have a Patreon. I point that out because there is a new monthly show on our Patreon feed called the Ouija Experiment, in which myself and a rotating series of hosts. Yes, Lori, there are Legion shows I'm not on. I'm only on like 2 of them, and we've got like 16 shows. But the Ouija Experiment is myself and a rotating series of hosts looking at movies that happen to have Ouija in the title. It is a very thin rationalization for me to watch these movies that I would watch anyway. But we look at them through the hard lens of science to determine whether or not these movies are in fact successful films at a very basic level. Just are these movies? That's really the science we're conducting. And in most cases, no. Most cases, the answer is no. So if you the first episode is on Patreon now. It's a video podcast like this one. Except my background is a laboratory because it's science happening on that show.
Science.
And so the first episode on the Ouija Experiment, the movie The Ouija Experiment, is out now. We will be recording for March the Ouija Experiment, the Ouija Experiment 2, Theater of Blood or Ghost or something, Theater of something, which was another movie that I had to order online. Like, you can't stream it anywhere, and I had to track down a copy of the Ouija Experiment 2, which is something that I will forever regret on my deathbed. So that's all the stuff that's going on Legion Pod. Not all the stuff. It's a fraction really of the stuff going on Legion Podcast these days. Doing a lot of shit. And the list of legends is going on, which is a tremendous amount of fun. So anyway, check all that stuff out. A lot of stuff. Nothing else, Duncan. We're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. Be back with another live episode in 2 weeks' time. Until then, there is nothing left to say but say goodnight, Duncan.
There's nothing left to say but say goodnight, Duncan.
Oh, bye.
I don't like that. Oh.
Oh.